Come on in, welcome to Idled Out, where we talk all things Survivor. My name is Luke, and today we're analyzing the cast of Survivor 42. There are lots of great cast analyses already out there, so I've decided to take a look at this cast from a different perspective. As part of my general analysis about their game and longevity and strategy, I'll also be assigning a preseason award to each of the Survivor 42 castaways. Think of it like Survivor yearbook superlatives. Some will be pretty normal, most likely to win, most likely to be the first boot, and so on. But some will be extremely specific. I'll be using the official cast bios, the get to know you videos, and Mike Bloom's interviews for Parade.com as the basis of my judgment, the links of which are in the description. Please go over there and give him a click or 18. All that said, let's hand out some awards to the cast of Survivor 42. Let's start with the Ika Tribe, and what better way to kick things off than with the Francesca Hoagie Award for most likely to be the first boot, going to 37-year-old pageant coach Romeo Escobar. Sorry, Romeo, but if it makes you feel better, I think most of the rest of your tribe will also be pre-merged, so silver linings. Romeo's overcome so much adversity in real life, from being born in a third world country, to growing up in South Central LA, to sharing a profession with Chet Welch. Romeo seems like a super cool dude, and I hope I'm wrong, but I'm worried for him right out of the gate for several reasons. For one, he's on what appears to be by far the physically weakest tribe. 2, reading his bio and listening to his interviews, I have absolutely no emotional response. I feel nothing one way or another. If anything, he comes off cold and kind of indecisive. Finally, he committed my biggest pre-game questionnaire pet peeve ever. In response to, which former castaway will you play most like? He said, quote, I don't think anyone has played a game like the one I will play. Yeah, there have been 500 plus contestants on Survivor. You're telling me you're not going to play even a little bit like any single one of them. You're going to play a completely brand new revolutionary game that's never been seen before in the 22 years this show's been on? Okay. I think Romeo's going to struggle to endear himself to his tribe and won't have the social capital to save himself when the target inevitably lands on him for challenge performance or for trying to pull off some heretofore unseen in Survivor history amazing early blindside. The Natalie Anderson Award for most likely to be the biggest challenge beast of the season goes to 35-year-old fitness consultant Drea Wheeler. A huge part of Drea's life is physical fitness, and she is going to be Ika's saving grace in the challenges. I mean, look at her. She's a fitness trainer and owned a fitness business. She knows fitness. In sentences I thought I'd never say, she's also a Goop girl. You can buy the Drea Wheeler resistance bands on Gwyneth Paltrow's new agey lifestyle website, Goop. And while you're over there picking up some Drea Wheeler booty bands, don't forget to grab some vampire repellent, jade eggs, and a coffee enema. My birthday's coming up. I'm just saying. Drea's obviously a super physically strong person, and it seems like much of her strategy is going to revolve around that. I think she'll be a leader, but not the one crunching the blindside numbers. Like, her answer to who she will play like is Wentworth because, quote, she contributes to her team and sets up alliances while still being a competitor in the competitions. I mean, that is just the most surface level analysis you could ever give, other than I like Wentworth because she breathes oxygen, just like me. I will be very shocked to see Drea go out anywhere that isn't like 12th place to 8th place. Unless she war dogs it and is a total flop in challenges, which seems unlikely. Drea is going to be by far her tribe's biggest challenge asset and easily soar through the first part of the game. And in the post-merge, she's going to very quickly be a target, and I'm just not feeling the social or strategic elements necessary to successfully navigate a hostile post-merge as a major threat. Early merge, for sure. Next is the JD Robinson Award for most likely superfan to get voted out early, going to 22-year-old student Zach Wurtenberger. I'm not seeing it for Zach, I'm sorry to say. Much like JD last season, Zach seems to me to be a young guy who doesn't have a ton of life experience and who has filled in the gaps with Survivor. That's not his fault. But as we saw last season, it's also not a recipe for success in the game. To say Zach is a student of the game would be an understatement. Zach has to be like regularly editing the Survivor wiki, right? It's not a bad thing to love things. Actually, that's awesome. But almost every answer of his loops back around to Survivor, even when it's completely unrelated. Who is your hero? Ethan. How will you be perceived? Like Adam. What do you desire in an alliance partner? 3 paragraphs of Survivor history. I'm sensing major relatability problems with most of his tribe. I got this exact same sinking feeling from JD last season. They're both accomplished in their young lives, but it's all kind of high school stuff. JD wanted to be the next Ozzy, Zach wants to be the next Adam. The result will be the same. A pre-merge finish. Let's hand out the Molly Byman Award for most likely to be targeted as a Parvati 2.0 to 25-year-old therapist Tori Meehan. Women under 30 and getting targeted for their appearance. Name a more iconic duo. I'm really hopeful that Tori gets to actually play the game rather than get targeted as Parvati 2.0 for no reason, like so many other young women have in the past 10 years. This season will actually be a good bellwether for whether or not we're beyond this era, so I personally really hope I'm wrong here. It'd be nice to move on from Parvati 2.0. But if it's gonna happen to anyone, it's gonna happen to Tori, which would be a shame because I'm excited to see Tori play, or overplay. Tori is a therapist, Survivor superfan, Jesus super duper fan, and former Sequester player. And when I say Survivor superfan, I mean superfan. Her family watches an entire season of Survivor at Christmas. Not even I do that. However, there are some red flags for Tori for me. Even pre-season, Tori's got big move-itis. She's wearing dorky glasses, has her hair in a bun, and is wearing loose-fitting clothes all in an attempt to make herself less of a target, even wearing colors that are psychologically proven to be less threatening. She's coming into the pre-season of Survivor way too hot, so imagine how she's going to do in the game. I really don't think Tori is as perceptive as she thinks, and if left to her own devices will probably gloriously over-scheme and overplay herself out of the game at some point. Let's just hope she gets that chance. Let's hand out the Purple Kelly Award for most likely to be completely invisible to 44-year-old stay-at-home dad, Roxie Bailey. I mean, I had to, right? Roxie has the most pure, unadulterated dad energy I've ever seen, right down to promising to give the $1 million check to his wife immediately. Where'd they find this guy? A sitcom from the 90s? Before he was a stay-at-home dad, Roxie was in environmental consulting, which I think develops a lot of the crucial people skills needed to succeed in Survivor. I think he's going to play a super straight-up, honest, providery, likable dude game. But I also get the impression that Roxie is going to be chronically out of the loop on his tribe. Not a big mover and shaker, but lovable and useful enough that he's keyed in on what's going on by his allies. We might get Roxie fishing montage in episode 3 or something. Then he'll pop back up an episode before his early to mid-merge boot to remind us he's there. I know I'm basically describing Nasir, and he got a lot of screen time last season, but I don't think Roxie quite has that wholesome Nasir magnetism to get the screen time he did. Less than 10 confessionals the whole season. The Will Wall Award for most likely to get milk at a reward goes to 19-year-old Ivy League student Swathi Goel. This award is obviously tongue-in-cheek, but Swathi just comes off as so young to me. There have been under 21s who played like and carried themselves like they're older. Michael Yerger, Julia Sokolowski, even Xander from last season had an old soul. But Swathi really has the energy of a really young person who acts really young. And I think she's going to have trouble relating with some of the older people in the game. Like, Bill Clinton was in office when Roxie graduated high school. For her young age, though, Swathi is super accomplished. She completed training for the Army National Guard like a day before going on Survivor. That is crazy. And she's one of the only people who straight up said she's not going to have a set strategy going into the game, because who knows what crazy twists Jeff might pull out of his khaki pockets. There's something to be said about letting the game happen and reacting to it, instead of trying to wrap your strategy around it. Still, I think Swathi's going to lack the social capital to make the moves she probably wants to make, and will probably be a cog in someone else's machine. Let's move on to the Swathi tribe and give out the Ricard Foyer Award for most likely to be a him Spradlin, which is going to 29-year-old data scientist Hai Zhang. Last season, I dubbed Ricard him Spradlin, and I wasn't disappointed. A him Spradlin is a guy who, like Kim, just has that indefinable Survivor winner look. You just look at them and say, yeah, that guy's great at Survivor. An 8 out of 10 at least in every category. Like, look at Hai and tell me he's not making a deep run. What insane sequence of events would lead Hai to an early exit? Things will have to go completely sideways for him for that to happen. And it's not even just the look. Hai immigrated to the US when he was 3 years old, grew up very poor, overcame tons of adversity in every aspect of his life to become the first person in his family to graduate college. Hai's also super prepared for the game, but not over-prepared like a lot of people here. Unfortunately for Hai, having the Survivor look is a blessing and a curse. It begins to become a major liability as the game winds down, because if I'm getting good at Survivor vibes from just a photo and some text in a biography, people playing with you are going to notice too. If Ricard is anything to go by, a him Spradlin hallmark is a 7th to 5th place finish, so you can expect Hai to land right there. Sorry Hai, I don't make the rules. Next, let's hand out the Michelle Fitzgerald Award for most likely to end up on the challenge to Chanel Howell, a 29-year-old executive recruiter. I mean, come on. You know what's happening. The Survivor to Challenge pipeline is ever widening, and I think Chanel has a strong claim to be the next Michelle, Michaela, Natalie, Jay, or Tommy. Step 1, get far in Survivor. Shouldn't be a problem for Chanel. Everything about her life, her appearance, her job, screams great Survivor player. So no wonder a lot of people have latched onto her as a potential winner. It certainly wouldn't surprise me. She was definitely in contention for my winner pick. She's a longtime fan. Her literal job is building relationships and negotiating at the highest level of business. At least on paper, Chanel is an almost perfect Survivor contestant, which explains her crazy levels of preseason hype. It's hard for me to imagine a scenario where Chanel doesn't make the merge at least. I think she's going to be one of the major players of the game. Step 2 to getting on the challenge: be young, attractive, athletic, and charming. I rest my case. Please clap for 30-year-old law clerk Daniel Strunk, winner of the Jacob Derwin Award for most likely to implode early on. I wish I had better game feelings about Daniel. He's a really likable guy. Survived leukemia, loves Legos, collects signed pocket constitutions, keeps spreadsheets of TV shows he's watched. He's really fun, but he's coming into Survivor way too prepared. He's got this obsession with lowering his threat level. It comes up multiple times in each interview. And maybe I'm wrong, but do you need to? Buddy, you worked on the Jeb Bush campaign. Like, he's got this whole strategy of having crazy hair to make himself appear goofier. He plans to parlay his cancer scars into personal connections, and it all just screams classic early superfan overplaying. Before we know it, this guy's gonna be putting the rice in his sock. I think Daniel's probably going to come into Survivor way too hot, realize it fairly quickly, but by then it'll be too late. His best bet for survival: manifest some of that patented low energy from his pal Jeb, and just lay low for a bit. Next is the Katie Gallagher Award for funniest losing finalist, 22-year-old waitress Lydia Meredith. Oh, I found her. It's Gen Z, the person. Lydia's really lovable, just pure chaotic good energy. It seems like Lydia's going to be our token funny person this season. Her biography is funny and irreverent while also being really authentic. I don't know why this has been haunting me for 13 years now, but go read Mick's biography from Survivor Samoa for an example of a bio whose humor is completely inauthentic. But back to Lydia, she's super out of her element heading into Survivor, but really charming. And if she can turn little sister mode on, I don't think she'll have trouble making friends or allies in those crucial early days where I think she's going to be most in danger. That said, Lydia's biggest obstacle in the game is going to be herself. Lydia thinks she's going to play like Tom Westman, but yeah, not the Palau finalist I'd compare her to. I see a lot more Katie in Lydia than I do Tom, and while that's not great for her winning chances, it is great for our entertainment. I hope Lydia's brand of humor lands, because I think we're going to be getting it all season long. Potentially an endgamer or losing finalist. She won't win the million, but she will win our hearts. The winner of the Tom Laidlaw Award for most likely to be way too loyal goes to 58-year-old retired firefighter Mike Turner. Just like last season with Abraham, Mike is coming into this game with a very old school mentality, my word is my bond, win challenges, etc., etc. Like I said with Abraham, it's a tale as old as time. Tom Laidlaw, Joe Del Campo, Rick Nelson, Jerry Sims, Eric Abraham, guy who's 50 plus, works hard around camp, well liked and low key, who makes an early alliance and sticks with it through thick and thin, often used by better players as a loyal soldier. This kind of player either finishes in the top 5 with their alliance, or the bottom 5 as a pre-merge boot. What does that mean for Mike? Many people on this cast were locked in back in 2020, so it's tough to envision a world where players who've been through getting cast a year prior to filming, who then endured COVID lockdowns and uncertainty about the show's future or even their placement on the season, are going to want to just get in an alliance and be loyal. Mike seems like a super nice guy, and he randomly identifies with Ty, which is adorable, but I'm not sensing a lengthy stay in the game for him. Let's give the Tina Wesson Award for equally likely to be the winner or the first boot to 43-year-old creative director Jenny Kim. In my initial read of the cast, I was super high on Jenny, and she was actually my original winner pick. But upon further reflection, I realized that I could actually go either way on her placement. What inspires me about Jenny is that she's a natural leader, she has high EQ, and she's able to talk about strategies she wants to emulate in a really articulate but also simple way. If Jenny is just Jenny the person, she's going to do well. What makes me worried for Jenny is that she's already talking about how other people are going to have one idea, and she's going to tell them, no, actually this is better. That's the corporate director in her talking. As Natalie Cole proved, if you try to pull the I'm a boss in real life thing, it won't work out. Then on the other side of the coin, Jenny's talking about how everyone always thinks she's so nice, and she intends to be quiet, which could be dangerous if Jenny's doing more observing than participating. Jenny's the hardest read for me on this cast. I get pulled in so many different directions with her, which is probably ultimately not a great sign. Winner? Sure. First boot? Sure. Moving on to our final tribe, Taku, we're handing out the Joe Anglem Award for least likely to own a shirt to 29-year-old beach service company owner, Jonathan Young. Does he own a shirt? Will this guy ever put on a shirt? Did he have to specifically buy a shirt to get on the plane to go to Fiji? I mean, he's got to at least wear a shirt during the marooning, right? I mean, I'm not even kidding here. Straight out of Jonathan's bio. Pet peeves: wearing shirts. Jonathan's cut from the same cloth as a long line of sun-kissed beach bum surfer bros. Some, like Devin and Triple H, are surprisingly great at Survivor. Others, like Seabass, not as good. But either way, you really have to try hard to go home early when you're the token shirtless dude on the cast. You've pretty much got a one-way ticket to the merge, which is where I expect Jonathan to land in the game. I'm not sure I'm seeing Devin upside with Jonathan, although he did play Endurance as a kid, which is basically mini Survivor, so maybe. But I'm not getting Final Four vibes nor major winner equity from him. But I do think he'll be a bigger strategic force than some surfer bros of years past. But really, how many shirts does he own? It's less than 5, right? Let's give out the Donathan Hurley Award for most likely to win the Sia Award to 24-year-old seminary student Marianne Oketch. In one of the weirdest parts of Survivor lore, the Sia Award was an informal award given out intermittently from season 32 to season 39 to whoever the musician Sia liked. She would just crash Survivor reunions and give out $100,000 to her favorite player. Sia stopped crashing reunions because Survivor reunions stopped happening because of COVID, but let's just pretend we live in a world where this season does get a reunion. Were that the case, Marianne would totally be getting a huge check from Sia. This woman is going to be the major fan favorite of the season. Everything about Marianne's personality is so lovable. She's bubbly, delightfully weird, energetic, with a killer smile. I mean, you can already see the rows of OTTP4 for her on the Edgic chart of this season, right? Marianne's also very religious and is going to use her faith to guide her in the game. Usually, fan favorites and actually good at Survivor are like oil and water, but I think Marianne has a good enough strategic head on her shoulders to have a lot of success in the game. I really like her idea of finding an alliance partner who is exactly the same threat level as her, so there's no temptation to cut one another prematurely. I think Marianne's going to be one of the characters of the season as long as she's there, which I think might be a lot longer than many people think. The recipient of the Aubrey Bracco Award for most likely to overuse similes and metaphors goes to 31-year-old exotic animal veterinarian Omar Zahir. I love Omar. This guy's got a killer personality and is super accomplished. He proudly lives his Muslim faith every day. He got into vet school, then he got into residency in a specialty with a super low admissions rate. And as an exotic animal vet, Omar is living his dream of sticking his hand up the butts of large animals every day. The only thing left on his list is Survivor. I was initially down on Omar because he's kind of got this faint whiff of cockiness to him, and was favorably comparing himself to all these big Survivor legends. But after giving him a second look, I think Omar is going to do really well in the game by bringing some fun Rob Sesternino energy to camp. He's definitely a dark horse pick to win. While I can't say for certain how he'll do in the game, I can say for certain this guy is going to be bringing Aubrey amounts of metaphors and similes to his confessionals. His preseason press is absolutely loaded with animal comparisons. He is making this his brand. He wants the other castaways to view him as a pigeon, but in reality, he's more like a predatory bird. People are gonna go extinct. He wants a lemming shield. Mileage may vary on how much you're gonna appreciate Omar's animal comparisons, but I think it'll be fun to see how wild they get. I mean, I personally cannot wait for the Survivor is just like performing a colonoscopy on a rhinoceros confessional. Next is the winner of the Ream Daily Award for most likely to have mega mom energy, going to 47-year-old teacher slash stay-at-home mom, Mariah Sharon. Last season, I gave this award to Tiffany, and yep, here we go again. The mom energy is strong with Mariah. Pet peeves: when someone has a big ol' snuffleupagus sneeze and doesn't cover their nose. Oh my. She's been around 10-year-olds too long. Mariah's not here for the money, she's here for the experience and to find herself. Her brother was the first nurse in New York to pass away from COVID, and she wants to give her family something bright to talk about after what was obviously a rough couple of years. I want that for her, but I am concerned her big heart and empathy might be her downfall. Additionally, so much of her preseason press is about being a mom, and I'm not convinced she'll be able to turn that off, even though she says she knows she needs to. And even worse for her outlook in the game is that none of the 21s and under are on her tribe. I think that would really help her out. Because of all of the above, I'm really not seeing a long stay in the game for Mariah, I'm sorry to say. Especially if she brings that Angelina and Tony energy she's talking about. Wait, what? Most chaotic teacher since Miss Frizzle. Next, we have 48-year-old healthcare worker Jackson Fox, the recipient of the Eddie Fox Award for most likely to fail upwards. I mean, it's in the name. we are long overdue for our next accidentally fails upward and then has winner equity player that was once a fixture of Survivor in the mid-20s to mid-30s. Jay, Keith, Eddie Fox, Keith again, they all came within spitting distance of the end, and all had a legitimate shot to win, despite rarely, if ever, having an accurate read on the game. Maybe I'm just manifesting a deep Jackson run here because I love this guy, but come on. His story is super inspiring. He transitioned when he was 40, and I'm sure we can all agree that's probably not something that's super easy to do when you live in a small southern town. And of everyone on the cast, he comes off as just genuinely the nicest human being, which often leads to game naivete. He kind of reminds me of Jeannie from last season in a way, just too nice for Survivor. Jackson describes himself as perceptive and an observer, and I'm also not 100% sure I get that from this bio. Like his answer to "what is something we would never know from looking at you" is "I'm covered in tattoos." Jackson, I actually think we did get that from looking at you. The trajectory I'm seeing for Jackson is his likability and work ethic are easily going to be enough to carry him through the early part of the game, and at the merge he'll skate by as a non-threat until he's suddenly popping up at the end with major winner equity simply due to his personality. Maybe if he wins, Jackson and Eddie can finally open that dog bar. Finally, we're ending this analysis with the Sandra Diaz-Twine Award for Most Likely to Win It All, awarded to 31-year-old dietitian Lindsay Dolashewicz. When I read Lindsay's profile, one word jumps out to me: Jersey. But when I reread it, another word jumps out to me: authentic. Lindsay is just unapologetically herself. You know what you're getting with her, and you know what you're getting is real. And the real her is really likable. Her work as a dietitian has not only prepared her body, but also helped sharpen her social skills. She talks about how in nutrition there's a lot of counseling, digging into motivations, and developing a rapport so that people open up to her. She also comes across as pretty perceptive to me. Despite being a dietitian and physically fit, qualities she could just skate by on, Lindsay understands that the social game rules all. I think Lindsay is the perfect mix of game savvy, athletic, and personable. Plus, New Jersey has a randomly great track record on Survivor. If Lindsay's going to have any problems, it's going to be her level of intensity. But for some reason, New Jersey people just kind of get a pass on that anyway. Like, why is Tony like that? Oh, he's from Jersey. That makes sense. Lindsay compares herself to Stephanie LaGrossa in her bio, and I think that's a pretty apt comparison. You know, famous two-time player Stephanie, who only played twice and that's it. They're both super strong women who take no BS, big fans of Survivor, who'd like to forget Survivor Guatemala ever happened. Lock it in, folks. She may as well change her name to Lindsay Dolashewicz. Got nothing else for ya. What do you think? Am I right on or way off? Who do you think is winning? Who do you think is the first boot? Let's talk about it. Until next time, don't get idled out.